then I will be able to add this on YouTube as well. So we've got a channel on YouTube where the first session is fully recorded, where we spoke about the real confidence versus career confidence. And I had a lovely lady join me that day who was part of the conversation, but also, when I was discussing the difference between the two levels of confidence, the real confidence being made up of 4 different things, which is personal, professional, financial, and your surrounding. So how do you feel about yourself, which is key to having real confidence. Professional confidence, on the other hand, is all about your work, your career, your money you earn, etc. So that's not really holistically what should be as a person and your real confidence. But in this day and age, what we see is more and more people are very professionally confident, where they have great jobs, they're earning a lot of money, steady progress, but they're not really happy, because if you look at the other parts of their lives, other pillars, so to speak, they're missing or they're broken. So that was the debate and the conversation that I carried out in the first session. It is fully on YouTube, and I've written a blog about it as well to follow up this week on LinkedIn. So if you find me on LinkedIn, we can connect there as well. You can read it from there. I've also answered 3 questions. So if you have a specific question, feel free to write it down on the chat here, or just ask me again, and I can sort of work through that question with you. Right? Super. And then in this session, what we were going to focus on is a complete, and I know you can't see that, but I've taken a screenshot, so I will share that. And so for whoever wants to have a look at it later can do as well, is that in this session, I wanted to talk about no more. Let me know when you can see what I'm sharing.
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
Yeah, no more New Year's resolutions. And the reason I want to talk about it is because there are a few layers to how things happen when we sort of put ourselves into literally sort of target ourselves into doing certain things. And so I usually divide the session into 3 key things. The first one is that I'll do a quick discussion about 2 or 3 key things on the session. The second one is that I will take questions from whoever is attending, so we can talk about that, whether it's from this session or last session, and do a follow-up. And then the third section is I pick up 3 questions from the things that I receive, because throughout the month I receive direct messages on questions and things that I would then respond over here. I pick the top 3 questions to sort of, and then I'll publish everything on YouTube, write a blog about it, etc. as well, so people don't miss what I'm doing, in case it's useful, right? So just to get the discussion started today, I wanted to talk about this whole no more resolutions, followed by the whole positive feedback loop. But before we get to that point, hello?
Oh, sorry, I lost you for a second there.
Yes. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better for me. Yeah, I can hear you much better now.
Excellent. So but before we get onto the positive feedback loop and no more resolutions and why, New Year's resolutions and why, I want to discuss is why it is important for us to have tactical and strategic goals in life, right? So as individuals, we always want to have a long-term goal, whether it's one goal that we want to achieve in this lifetime or 2 or 3 goals. Right? And when we know what we truly want in life, we really have to write them down and be very, very honest with ourselves. In one lifetime, we can achieve as many things as we want, but if we look at some of the best people that have achieved things, they would say, boil everything down to the top 3 or 5 things you truly want to achieve in this lifetime, right? So Steve, in your case, it may be things like perfect health, amazing family life, amazing professional career, etc. Whatever it is, boil down your list to the top 3 or 5 things you truly want to achieve out of your life. For some people, it could be living a life of nomads and travelers, they just want to be traveling around and having an ongoing income and stuff. So depending on what you want. And then once you have those goals on paper, there's literally 3 or 5 goals. I actually have 5 goals on the paper that I stick to my vision board, and then you would work backwards to see, whatever you're doing today in terms of activities tactically and the goals you've set for yourself to achieve on day-to-day and month-to-month basis, are they practically leading you in the direction of your life goal, right? And
Okay.
if those tactical decisions, day-to-day activities, week-on-week and month-on-month activities are not taking you back to your vision board of 3 to 5 things that you want to achieve, then you're certainly driving yourself in the wrong direction. So if the activities are leading you in that direction, that's great. Now, all you have to do is just streamline, be a little bit tactical about how much you push yourself and achieve. But if it's not, then you've really got to stop. And I say this to everyone and anyone I talk to. If you don't feel that you're progressing towards your life goal and your life purpose, then you have to stop and take stock. Now, this process is amazingly painful because we don't like change. It is scary. It's annoying because we've spent so much time in doing some things. But what if we continue, we're wasting even more time in doing things that are not good for us, right? So this then very nicely leads into this whole New Year's resolution. And, you know, the craze that everyone has about, oh, as soon as it's 31st of December, I've got a list of my New Year's resolution. Come 1st of January, I'm going to be a new person. No, it doesn't work like that.
Fine.
Right? How many times have we made New Year's resolutions and we haven't stuck by them?
How many?
How many times have we made New Year's resolutions and not stuck by them?
Yeah, well, they tend to be those silly ones. I'm going to give up chocolate for 3 months, or I'm going to. Yeah, I think more so recently, people are actually looking at more life. I suppose the older you get, people look at more life goals, but you tend not to stick to them. I'm going to start going to the gym more. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start giving back. But yeah, your day-to-day life gets on top of you, doesn't it? And you tend to find yourself thinking, okay, I will do that. I'll just, I'll leave it a couple of weeks, and then you forget about it, and then no change is made.
Absolutely. You've made my point, because that's exactly where, and one of the biggest example is in the health. I want to become healthy. That's a new life goal. Up to 31st of December, I'm going to eat everything. I'm going to drink as much as I want. Suddenly on the 1st of January, I'm going to be a different person because I will. Well, and then what happens is you wake up on the 1st of January, or an individual wakes up, and they have this list of must do, X achievement, and they are so much pressured because they haven't really achieved it. They're starting to falter through. So what happens is you're thinking, oh my God, no, I said from the 1st of January I was going to do it. I did it for a week, and then I got tired or lazy, or life took over. And I've now completely gone bust my New Year's resolution. So you start to put yourself down. You have this negative loop going on in your head where you're talking yourself down at every opportunity you get. Now, one of the things I discussed in the first session was how to always be mindful of your internal dialogue. Is what are you telling yourself? Are you aware of your own conversations in your mind? And once you start to bring your attention to your internal dialogue, I want people to convert that into a positive dialogue, right? Because 9 times out of 10, the conversation that goes in our minds is what stops us from becoming the best version of ourselves. It's self-critique. It's wrong pressure. It's focusing our brain and our energy on completely wrong and misguided things, because we have so many pressures around us that we completely fail to understand ourselves as individuals. And so for me, New Year's resolutions are actually quite a negative process. Because if I think about it, I'm not going to change as a person completely when I wake up on the 1st of January. I'm still the same person. I still have a sweet tooth. I still, like doing the things I like doing. So what I have to do is, if I want to truly work on something in my life, which is a life goal, so becoming healthy is a great example, I have to start today. And it doesn't matter what day it is, what month it is, what hour it is. If I think that I want to do something, I have to start now. I have to really think about where is it that I want to get to in a year's time, in 2 years' time with it. And how do I vision myself at 60 when I look back to say, yeah, I did it and I did it right? Okay, so changing ourselves is a long-term process. Changing our life situations is a long-term process. Changing our confidence level is a mental attitude process. It does not happen overnight. So New Year's resolutions actually are very, very bad for people because they go into this brand new year thinking they're going to change something suddenly in their life, and then they're in a shock because a month later they've fallen back into their old patterns.
Yeah, completely.
So for me, I would tell people, stop New Year's resolutions. If there is something you want to do with yourself in your life, do it then when you think about it. Start pondering, start thinking about how would you make that change? What kind of help do you need? Maybe come into a session like this, and then, I'll be able to guide you into different areas again. Through either recommendations or whatever else, because these sessions are only 45 minutes and once a month. But what we can do then is we're starting to really become aware of ourselves, which is where this drawing, which I've opened and shared on that image, because I know the background doesn't always come through because of the light.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
And that's where I want us all to really start monitoring, not just be aware of our internal dialogue, but start monitoring that and building a positive feedback loop. So Steve, so far what I've said, does that make sense and resonate with what people should be doing?
Yeah, I think any trigger for someone to make a difference in their lives, and I think, albeit a New Year's resolution is great, but it's how they manage that change. It's when it comes to health and fitness. I've plenty of friends who try and do it, and they try and cut out no carbohydrates. I can't eat potatoes or any chips or anything after 5 p.m. But you can, just don't be silly about it and order 2 plates of chips and finish the whole lot. It's how you manage that, and I think those triggers. Anything that can trigger it is great, but then you have to think, well, why am I doing it? Am I not happy with my body? If it's a fitness, I'm trying to attend this because I want to be better at public speaking. Well, why do you want to be better at public speaking? Because it will help you achieve a goal to be professionally more successful in your job. So I think it's fundamentally, why do you want to change it? And I completely agree that internal dialogue that you have with yourself has to be positive. Oh, you're really bad at running, but at least you got your bum off the couch and got yourself to the gym. Even if you can't run for that far, you got off the couch, you got to the gym. Take some credit in that, and then work towards building on that. So I think we as humans very much dwell on the negatives and can beat ourselves into submission, and then lose a lot of focus on what targets we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. And this is it. I mean, if we want to make a change, why not start today? I know it's the 30th of November. Why do I have to wait till the 1st of January next year?
Yeah, absolutely. And but then some people will blame it on social pressures and, well, there's so many temptations of going out. Well, there's not. There's lots of nice things to go and do out, and you obviously want to do them all, and that's great. But you're going to be seeing the next 50 Christmases, so why don't you spread it across that? There's always going to be things to do. Don't feel like the fear of missing out, the fear of posting the next thing on Instagram and being glued to your phone and putting caption this and caption that. I think there's a bigger story to it all, isn't there? I think people don't focus on themselves a lot. They focus on what other people think of them.
Absolutely. And this is where it's all about you. It's about you as an individual, and how are you going to start defining yourself? We've all been raised in the image of our parents, teachers, and what other people and society has taught us from a very young age. So by the time we come to graduation and everything, we're sort of built in this model version of human that's meant to keep churning the wheels of how life is meant to happen. But in reality, what that has done is that has only duplicated humans from, if you can think about, basically, when a child, so yesterday my nephew was really trying to lift a car off in a mall, and we were like, what are you trying to do? Oh, I'm going to lift the car and throw it off. Oh, are you so strong? Yes, I am, because kid is limitless. Then what we do to that is, no, but you can't lift a car, it's too heavy. You can't do that, it's that. You can't fly off the roof. Are you stupid? So we start to train kids and ourselves into thinking that there is something wrong with us because we have to be societally accepted in a certain norm.
Mm.
And this is where a lot of our conditioning and a lot of our, oh, if I don't have a house by the age of 35, then I'm not good enough. Or if I don't have a stable career and 100K in income, then I'm not good enough. And this is where all of it comes from. But actually, what makes you happy as a human being could literally be having your own blog, traveling every month, and just having a decent income could make you happy as an individual. But have we really given people the opportunity to explore that?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, without judgment, I think, as well, because some things make some people happy and some things make other people happy. But I think some people can see your goals. It's surrounding yourself with the right people. I think you've written it there. Positive acceptance, but negative loop. I suppose you could dial it into that if you wanted to. Positive people around you as well. They need to help you reinforce that.
Absolutely. And so the whole point of the positive feedback loop, and I usually tend giving examples to people that if I smile at someone, they will smile back at me. And in return, they're going to feel happy. My smile is going to get a bit brighter. And then it's going to go around to everyone, right? Because then you'll feel happier. You'll go and smile at someone else. And it's like laughing and smiling. It's infectious. Just like if I'm angry at somebody on the tube, although you haven't been part of that conversation, you were part of that energy, you've taken a bit of that on and you've gone in and gone frustrated on someone else. And it's just a negative loop, right? That goes on. It's about when someone is angry and negative, because there are a lot of those people, unfortunately, how do we ensure that, how do I ensure that I'm actually in a safe place, I am positive, and their negativity doesn't affect me? Just how do I ensure that their judgment of me, because I'm not doing this job or because I don't look that way, is not affecting me and my peace of mind, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so that has a lot to do with your internal self-love. Something I said in the first session is I really, really love Marissa Peer and some of the work that she has done in literally telling people to say, I am enough. Put it on your mirror, put it wherever it is. I am enough. Because when you start saying that and you start to sort of practicing self-appreciation and self-acceptance, is when you'll start to notice that not only you're aware of the negative self-talk, but you're actually going to say, hang on a minute, how dare I say that to me? I love myself, thank you very much. Or, well, I was glad I got off the couch and got into the gym, even if I did half an hour. So I really want that everyone who joins these sessions or listens to these videos afterwards really gets that positive sort of hint and energy from me, that they can go away and really start to think about how do they talk to themselves. Yeah,
so definitely.
It's definitely my mission, because I think all sorts of feelings that we create around us of unfairness, resentment, anger, frustration, they come from being not able to control ourselves alone, because we're trying to control other things that are not of ours to control. So being able to separate those things, and it's very difficult. I mean, I'm the only one I feel in my family as an example who's able to do that, because even my sister and her husband, it's difficult to separate from certain relationships and certain situations. But I think more and more people start to think about this. And so, Steve, for you, this is the exercise for me. Last week, the exercise was to actually figure out your real confidence versus your career confidence. And so that's on my first session video as well on the YouTube channel. If you check it out for the exercise, if you wanted to do that exercise, it would be very interesting to see where you are on the scale of confidence. But also this week, the second session exercise is to really be aware and mindful of your internal dialogue. And every time you catch yourself being negative, how will you stop and say something positive instead?
Fine. Yeah. I'm reading a book called, at the moment, my friend bought it for me, called Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and that talks a lot about self-dialogue, that internal dialogue, and it makes you, that success mechanism and all, You know, just thinking positively. And I think, I've been doing that for the last few days. Find yourself, you know, getting annoyed because someone's barged in front of you to get onto the train, but it's just, oh, they're in more of a rush than you. That's okay. You know, we're all making the same train, so don't worry about it.
Absolutely. May I give an example? This week I was on a tube, and there was this woman. It was quite crowded. As we know, London tubes can get so crowded, right? So there's this woman. She was standing on, you know, one of those places where there are two bars to hold. She was basically standing on both, like just resting herself on that. And so I wasn't able to hold anywhere. And there were people who were like trying to hold the ceiling and the door, etc. So I just literally, on the top of it, I held the bar that was empty where she wasn't leaning. And she was so mad at me in the tube. She goes to me, "You pushed me." I was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" She's like, "You pushed me." I said, "I haven't even touched you." And so we started that dialogue, and I started to laugh because that's my default setting, is when someone's getting angry for no reason. I just have this, because my energy is so positive, I'm like, "Well, you have a problem." I said, "Can I help you?" I offered. And she's like, "I'm pregnant." I said, "Do you want me to ask someone to get up for you?" She's like, "No, I don't need that." And she was so angry that I said, "You really need to get a breath and get some help." And I couldn't stop laughing. So, but what happened is, what happened is when I left that conversation, I forgot about it, and I'm still happy about it, right? Whereas in the same situation, two people will end up really fighting and then angering everyone else around them. Which is where I think if all of us got to a position where we were like able to empathize and say, "Look, there's something wrong here, and I hope you get help," or whatever, and just move on and not let it affect your day.
Yeah, completely. No, completely. I think I've been accused of that, of holding on to things for too long, you know, for holding grudges and being like that. But there is a time you just need to be like, just let it go. Just there's so much energy wasted thinking about it and how it could have turned out if the other person had done something different. But you can't control them. You can only control you.
Absolutely. And what you think is right and what you don't think is also right, right? So if you are holding on to a grudge, pain, and rightly so, you know, someone could have been unfair to you, but people can only be unfair to us if we truly, truly accept the reality is that if we allow them to be unfair to us, right? In that fashion, in that mode of thinking, when you are then holding on to resentment, you're only hurting yourself further, and you end up almost creating this loop of negative. Like every time you see that person or hear of that person, this emotion triggers that has nothing to do with this, with the situation you may be in at the moment, but it's sort of hijacked your present. So I love mindfulness and meditation. I spend quite a few hours a week. I wouldn't say a day because I do a lot even during the day, doing meditation and mindfulness. And I would suggest if you can get into the practice of mindfulness, it is an amazing practice. You can do it on the tube, you can do it anywhere. You literally just have to be present and focused. Even if you're crammed in a tube, that's your presence and awareness. It's quite mindful and helpful. So is that something you're up to doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be well up for that. That sounds like a good idea.
Excellent, excellent. So Steve, let me take a question from you first before I go on to these 3 questions that I have on my list.
Okay. Let's have a little go to your ones on the list first. Let me have a little let me try and pose you something quite challenging.
Sounds good. I don't always promise that I can answer them, but I will always come back. So the first one I have that I've picked is someone who has actually been having this trouble for about 6 to 8 months now. So she said, "I find it extremely difficult to work with a colleague who is constantly moaning about travel, tasks at hand, projects, etc., and is always delayed in her work output. But the manager sympathizes with her so much and gives her work to me because I don't complain. So it seems that I have more spare time to do more work. What should I do?" So my advice in that case, and the reason that, Steve, the reason people write to me is because they can then look at the videos later on as well if they're unable to join. And
yeah, absolutely.
So I will answer this question. So my advice in this case is, how many times, firstly, have we all gone through that, where we've, if we were one of the three children and a couple of them were moany, then the parents would always almost ignore us and give us more work to do. Same thing that happens at work. And so I completely empathize with what's going on with her. My advice would be to have an open and honest dialogue with the manager, not with the colleague that's moany, etc. So firstly, I would tell Louise, the lady who sent the question, I would tell Louise to really firstly separate herself from that energy, from that anxiety, from that negativity, and either physically find herself a different desk or something, or get into an open dialogue and a conversation with her manager to keep it very objective. Right, Louis? So has to be very, very objective. You're talking about your workload to say, look, for me to do the best job in my ability and my hours given, I'm not able to take so much extra work. I can do one or two things extra, of course, but I want to do the best with my role. And so you are going to have to push back or give it back to the same person. And second step to that is, say, potentially get them help, because their negativity is starting to affect you and your workload. And you would not want to leave a job because of a colleague who is not giving in the same amount of input in the work environment. So I know I've said a lot, but what I mean by this for Louise, when you listen to this, is literally, firstly, separate yourself mentally and emotionally. This is not your problem, okay? Second, have a very objective, open conversation with your manager. Talk about it and try to be very unemotional about it, right? So be empathetic, but don't be emotional. Don't start crying or don't feel angry or agitated, because then that will take your objectivity away. Because what you're really focusing on is the fact that you have a job to do and you want to do your job to your best ability, and not become somebody who is just dumped on extra work because you can do it, right? So those are the two steps. Go on, take them, and see how it goes. Keep me posted, whether you write back to me or comment on one of these videos. Please do so. Okay. So the second question I have is, I was recently told off in a meeting because I was able to talk about my achievements, and despite my age, I was proud to be part of a bigger conversation. I was told that I was not being humble. I'm a younger female executive in my company. Right. So, Mel, for conversations like these, I would usually say that if a man in my position was not asked or told that he was not being humble, then why were you, right? So my, not a pushback, but the way I would ask you to look at it is that you need to understand, firstly, who are the people around you, and then speak to them openly about the fact that that is being gender biased. Okay, they may not understand that, but you need to let them know, because I'm fairly sure that if a young, driven man was to say something like that, they would all be very proud of him. So maybe just make them aware that that's how you feel. Now, of course, last month when I was tackling this, there was a very senior female executive. She did not give us her name, but she's from Australia, who works in a huge bank, and she was struggling with actually taking a thank you for the work she had done, because she was on the other spectrum of confidence, where she wasn't confident enough to be receiving compliments. So what I would also like you to do in this position, Mel, is also to check your confidence level. That were you truly just being humble and happy about your achievements, and was it the right moment for you to express yourself the way you did, right? And if you feel that you were genuinely just being confident and happy, and you weren't overly proud of something that, in a professional setting may not have been acceptable. So just check your own meter of confidence. And then if you feel that that was unfair, or that comment wasn't fair, then you can obviously let them know and make them aware that, look, would you have said that to a guy in my position? And sometimes just a simple question like that would help people become aware of biases, because these biases can be unconscious and subconscious. So they may not even be thinking that it's a bias. So please do not take this as a, do not feel hurt by it, and make it, again, very objective. It's a work situation, right? Steve, do you have anything to add to any of these two questions before I go on to my third one?
I have my views on, because I used to manage, and I used to manage teams, men and women, and some of my best workers were women. So I have different views on sometimes how people can feel as a woman, a professional in an organisation. Because I think it's a lot of it's old guard leaving those positions as bosses and, you know, CEOs or CIOs or whatever it may be. I feel that once that old guard leaves, I think we'll see a very different trend in the way that women and men are treated as equal in most cases. But no, I think exactly right in terms of, you know, you've got to assess. On the second question, I think you've got to assess how you delivered your success, and how and was it that you felt that you was being a little bit underappreciated, that you delivered it in a way that was maybe slightly arrogant, maybe, you know, like you say, you need to look at yourself, how you delivered that. If you feel it was completely fair, pull your manager to one side and say, I feel like I delivered that fair. I think any professional would respect that completely. And if they haven't got a valid answer for it, then you maybe need to look at, have you got the right people above you to promote you and appreciate the work that you're doing, and start looking at, you know, is the company right for you? You're doing a great job, so the job roles are right, but is the company right for you? So at the end of the day, if they are treating you like that, you are probably hampering your ability to progress in that company. And drawing to the first question, I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think I really could add much more to that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and so one of the things that recently happened to me was that I was asked a question which I'm fairly sure that a man wouldn't have been. So now my position is, so it was about kids. And so my position on that is now that I literally, to the person who has posed the question, would instantly there and then very politely ask back and say, would you have asked this to a peer of mine who was a male in the same position, right, with the same, everything very similar, just replace me with a guy? Would you have asked him that question? And if their response is no, then I say, then I take a position of not answering that question. So I've even started to do that. And Steve, what's your view on that? Because I feel that that's been very productive for me.
What was the situation that that they were unwilling to promote because you were a woman, and the likelihood is you were going to have a child and take time off?
No, I don't work for anyone, so I have my own company. But this was with an investor who was like, "Oh, so you're at that age. What about marriage and kids?" And I went, "Well, would you have asked that to a man in my position? If not, then I would not, you know, I wouldn't answer that question." So, and we just.
I mean, some people are going to ask dumb questions. They do. They put their foot in it, and maybe that person walked away from that conversation and thought, "You utter Wally, what have you done?" I think if I was in a woman's position and built like that biologically, I think I would say, well, Deborah Meaden's got children. Some of the most successful women in business have all got children, and they're able to run multi-million-dollar companies. So I don't see how it's going to harbour my ability to run a company, develop a brand, do any of that, because I've got the support around me, and I don't see how that's an issue.
Fantastic, yeah, and I completely agree. I think it's as soon as, like Steve touched on, and you said, I say that, but because I'm live as well and recording, is that when you are able to address some of these questions objectively, and quite frankly, when some of this older mentality, I'm not saying older people, but I'm saying certain mentality is recycled automatically, I think there'll be a huge shift that we see coming into the corporate world as well.
I think we're already seeing it. You're already seeing some of these huge companies naming women as, CEOs, the head of the police, the Met, the first time is a woman, Prime Minister's a woman. We're seeing these seeing strong women in very fantastic positions, for the country and in some, multi-billion-dollar companies, and so they should be. And I think you're seeing a lot of, personally, I do think it is down to generation. I think you're seeing a lot of these. Maybe not obviously the government and etc. Maybe there was more pressure there as a society to see changes. But as companies go, I think you're looking at these companies where they've got young founders and they don't see gender. They say who's the most innovative, who's the hardest worker in the room, who's going to work really hard for me and develop this brand and loves it as much like it was their baby. Absolutely. And I really see that as a trend that in the next 20, 30, 40 years, you're going to see develop across a whole host of businesses and public sector jobs and everything.
Absolutely. And that is definitely encouraging. So Steve, do you have your question yet?
I suppose from my side, it comes from more of a social anxiety. So I'm starting my new job. So I was working for an IT company before, a cloud security. I'm now going into artificial intelligence, so it is very different. I've been doing as much research as possible. I've been told just to go in and just to be a disruptor and to go in and work as hard as possible and make these people who have been there for 4, 5, 6, 8 years realise that they can't rest on their laurels because there's a new guy here who's going to be working twice as hard. And I suppose dealing with, going into a really positive attitude, but having to have conversations with some people I may upset. I mean, how do you keep positive through that when some people aren't going to want to speak to you? Some people aren't going to want to, like I say, converse or give you advice on a solution that you don't know everything about and you want to learn off your colleagues. I mean, how do you keep yourself positive through that and deal with those types of professional, and it will turn into social pressures because you end up going out for beers and dinners and things with these people.
Absolutely.
How would you deal with that?
Absolutely. So Steve, firstly, there are two parts to this, right? The first one is your induction into a new business, into a new company, with, very experienced team members. And the second part is you're actually going in to almost, also show them that there is a new and better way of doing it, right? So there are two parts to this. So how I would tackle this is when you're starting this new job, literally in the first instance, the first 4 to 8 weeks is your time to be the sponge and to soak in and to basically just let people feel that you're there to learn, you're open, you're an expert in your own ways, but you're really there to become part of the team, right? So, and how you would do that, if I was to give it stepwise, how I would do that is literally have a very, very open mind, have very open-ended questions and conversations when you're sort of meeting with a team the first time. Just literally introduce yourself and say, I'm very excited to learn about what this is all about and what you guys have been doing over the next 4 weeks, as an example. And in your first week, maybe book half an hour conversations in their diary already. So what they, and have an agenda is that, look, this is part of my induction. So I'm booking half an hour coffee with you because I want to learn about what you've been doing and what I could be doing, etc. Right? So you can then start to have very informal, coffee-based, introductory conversations. Are you with me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I think I'm writing down as we speak. I think that's a great idea because it's something I didn't do in my last job. So I think going into this, learning about what's made them successful and, how we can help each other and getting to know the person, I think, as well. That's you're going to find people you're going to click with and people who you aren't.
Absolutely. Because so when I used to be a contractor, I used to have this double-folded responsibility is because I was only there for short term, but I was usually there to change something, either a system or a people's process or something. So I knew that when I went in, people hated me. From day one, people knew, oh, there is this change manager coming or the project manager coming, she's going to want to change things or whoever. And so as an interim, I was very used to. And so my approach was literally to go in, firstly, go with a very open mind. And I said, we've got 2 years because we have to hear more than we have to speak. So I would be very quiet and listen, and really make people comfortable with my presence, firstly, right?
Yeah.
And that's in my hands to do. That's my responsibility, and that's completely in my control. I would always have a smile on my face. I would offer to have coffee so I can understand more about their job. I would offer to sit in on their meetings to see how they conduct things, etc. as well. Right, so really get to know them, because the first 4 weeks or the first 2 months are not really about you going in and driving change. Are about you going in, learning what has done good for them, learning learning what different personalities are, what people are. Because if you can understand to read people and understand their pros and cons and strengths and weaknesses, you can
Mhm.
then actually positively take that into account when you then are in a position to go in and introduce a new process or introduce a new way of working or a new solution, right?
Mm.
So then you can take them on a journey with you, because what you've done is you've become, you don't have to become friends with them, right? So you don't have to be compulsorily going out for every Friday night beers and dinners and all of that, because that's where the social um, stigma comes in play at a professional environment, which is something that even we discussed, that in order for you to be a good company fit, you don't always have to go out on a beer, Friday night beers, right?
Mm.
And companies are very soon starting to realize and recognize this as well. But what you definitely have to do is you have to make yourself so comfortable in knowing that, look, you will be challenged in your coffee introduction. You will be told things that you may already know. You will be asked of things that you may not want to, you may not be comfortable talking about. Could it be personal? Yes, it could be. So where do you live? What's your personal, what do you like to do and stuff like that. So really, firstly, become very comfortable within yourself in knowing that you're going to exchange. This is literally data exchange, that you're going to be exchanging data in a very informal environment, and your motivation is to simply to like that person and for that person to like you back, right? Because you guys have to work together, even if you're there to change things, and as a result some of them may leave that job or their jobs or the company. That is not. So separate yourself from any outcome, so long as you're being 100% comfortable and confident within yourself, and really integrating yourself by learning about them as much as you're telling them about
Fine.
you. Okay?
Yeah. That all makes sense. That does make
Yeah.
sense.
And whilst you're going through this, I mean, as I've offered, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Insta, Twitter, wherever you're comfortable. And if you want to drop me a direct message when it is ongoing, and if you come through any hurdle where you feel, I had a coffee and this sort of conversation happened, and I'm not sure what to do about it, right? Then feel free to just drop me a note and we can jump on a quick call, or I can respond via an email or whatever. Because I'm very happy to follow this through and help you out as far as I can. And then, once you're happy and comfortable, you'll be able to lead this yourself, because you've got so much experience from what I hear that I think it's going to be great for you.
Yeah, yeah. I think it will be, but there's always the niggling, in the back of the head, thinking, oh, are you gonna get on with everyone? And I've had plenty of jobs, so I know that the social side of it. I know how that all works, but I suppose when you start seeing your next step as your career quite career defining for you, you
Yeah.
start those little old enemies still come back out of their little
Closets.
start saying, yeah, start going, oh, what if you mess this up? What if you mess that up? How should you be acting? I sometimes think there's a formula for everything, but then I sometimes have to realise there's not. You've just got to immerse yourself and act naturally with it, because as soon as you start overthinking everything, it doesn't quite work out.
No, and there is a formula for everything. And the formula is for you to get up every morning and tell yourself that you're more than enough, and that you do not require any form of acceptance or approval from anyone outside of you, right?
Yeah.
But even in the most uncomfortable professional and personal situation, if you removed yourself from that position to say, you know what, this may not be something you like, agree to disagree, but I am enough to understand that this is the right thing for me. then you have that peace of mind. And you're absolutely right in that, when you're doing something new, some of the old patterns, some of the old um, challenges do come in ahead of time, because you're pressuring yourself. You're pressuring yourself for a certain goal, for a certain achievement. Instead of pressuring yourself about it, go about it in actually feeling that it's fun. So, our brain works in as simply a matter of communication we send to it. So if I say, oh, I have to get this right, I'm actually pressuring myself to say, oh my God, if I screw up, this is it, right? Instead, if I change that dialogue to, oh, this is going to be so much fun, automatically, it's going to be right.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. I used to play competitive football, and a lot of people are, get a bit shy of that, but I used to love doing it. I used to be very sporty and very confident there, but when it comes to classrooms and standing up and reading and things like that, I became the shyest kid in the class. So it's amazing what you draw to when you tell yourself you can't do something. It's amazing what you're capable of not doing and doing.
Yeah.
And it's, that positive internal speech and that positive internal chat doesn't occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Steve, for me, I'm hoping that you will take these couple exercises away. It's definitely a positive feedback loop, and your internal dialogue. So every time you feel, no matter how busy you are, no matter where you are, if you catch yourself being negative or being fearful, I want you to stop yourself. I want you to breathe. And I really want you to rephrase that into something that brings a smile to your face.
Yeah, definitely. I will.
Fantastic. So I've got the last question here, and this is very interesting that I want to take, which is this gentleman, Gary. I have been in the world of work for 40 years now. I have to retire, but I do want to work and bring some more money at home to support my pension. What is the best thing for me to do? Just so you know, I'm not a skilled professional, so I would not fit into a corporate or an interim career. Okay, so I think Gary has written this because he knows me, and he knows that I often talk about interim, contracting, and portfolio career. So you don't have to, in the world of future of work, an individual does not have to stick to one particular career or job. There is a portfolio of career. That's how I built my career, and so I know that absolutely works. Now, in case of Gary, because he's not a skilled professional, he feels that he would not fit into a corporate interim role, which is fair enough. So Gary, my question to you would be, you have had 40 years of work experience. Firstly, that is amazing. Well done, right? Secondly, now you have some time to think about what you enjoy if you haven't already done that, right? So if you've only been working, and this happens with a lot of baby boomers and a lot of people that are retiring and will be and have retired, that they've only worked and slogged themselves to pay for their families. So now, Gary, this is your opportunity to really take a step back and think about, what do you enjoy? What would you really like to do? If you love to spend time with your grandchildren and kids, maybe you might want to train yourself as a teaching assistant, because qualification of that is simple, easy. You may also even get government support, I understand, and you may be able to do that for 2 or 3 days a week. It's a brilliant thing for you to do, Gary, if that may be of interest, right? Or what about writing? So Gary, for me, my advice would be, please spend some time in understanding what you really enjoy. Now that you only want to do part-time hours, so 20, 30 hours a week or even less, you have this opportunity to redefine what you could be doing. Okay. Steve, would you have anything for Gary on this?
Yeah, just don't sit stagnant. Go out and learn some new skills. You might find something that you pick up on the way that you really enjoy, really love, and actually think, wow, I never even thought that hobby could be an interest of mine. Can I make it is it an after hours club for people? Maybe I can charge to run the club, or just don't sit stagnant. Go and use your time, and don't rest on your laurels.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And I think reskilling is something that is going to become such a huge part. It already is such a huge part of future of working as well. That I hope that everyone gets into this mindset of, oh, I could be doing 2, 3 different things at the same time. That's no problem. Fantastic. So this marks like 52 minutes of the session. I hope that these Q&As have helped for anybody that's watching this later on. And a huge thank you to Steve for actually taking part and giving us some answers as well, and taking us through your questions. So Steve, keep in touch, keep me posted,
Will
and
do.
if there is anything else I can do to help and support, you know where to find me, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Take care. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you so much. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.